Honor killing in Kuwait, the role Islam plays in the violence against women. Like all major religions, Islam was founded by men whose main design was to oppress, objectify, and keep women under male control. Islam portrays women as deceitful temptresses. Every woman in the eyes of Islam is a reflection of Eve, who, according to the Quran, tempted Adam to eat the forbidden fruit and as a result be banished from heaven, to face a life of struggle and suffering on earth. In Islam, a woman is suspicious and wicked, always luring the male, always tempting him into forbidden sensuous pleasures. Therefore, she must be covered, her body must be shrouded, her hair must be veiled, she must not be seen or heard, lest she leads the poor innocent man astray. The man who has no control over his sexual urges, the man who is benevolent and who, if it weren't for the persistent distraction of seductress women, would quietly and faithfully dedicate his life to the worship of God. Muslim women have adhered to these degrading dogmas, believing the lies Islam tells them about how dangerous their bodies and their minds are, and thus should wrap themselves up like mummies and keep their mouths shut. From the age of 6, women in Muslim countries are taught in school about the horrors of being punished in the afterlife. An impious woman, an immodest woman, a woman who is disobedient to her male guardians, all of them will burn in hell for eternity by a just and merciful God. How can Muslim women not be afraid when the Prophet Muhammad, who claims to have traveled to the heavens on a flying horse called Al-Buraq, spoke to God, viewed heaven and hell, then returned to earth on the same night, told his followers that the majority of hell dwellers he saw were women, and that this was due to their immodesty and their disobedience to their male guardians? How could Muslim men not eye women as evil temptresses when the Prophet Muhammad said in the hadith, "I will not leave behind me a temptation more harmful to men than women"? The hadith is everything the Prophet Muhammad said and ordered his followers to obey. How could men not see women as inferior when in another hadith Muhammad said, "If I were to order anyone to bow to anyone else, I would order a woman to bow to her husband"? And in another hadith he provides, "If a man is praying and a donkey passes by, or a black dog passes by, or a woman passes by, his prayer is rejected." Women being equal to donkeys and dogs that invalidate prayer. I wrote a detailed essay entitled, "Is hijab really a choice, and is there equality between men and women in Islam?" A link is in the description box. In this essay, I number all the discriminatory religious practices against women mentioned in the Quran and in the Hadith, from polygamy and a husband's right to discipline his wife by beating, to the compulsory covering of the head and the body, to the disproportion of women's share of inheritance compared to men, to a husband's right to divorce his wife without her knowledge or her consent. In the mentioned essay, I also touch upon the issue of internalized misogyny, displayed by so many Muslim women who say that it's their choice to wear the hijab, emphasizing the misogynistic view that it's a woman's responsibility to cover up in order not to invite sexual violence from men, rather than it being the man's responsibility to refrain from sexual violence against women no matter what they are wearing. I also address the problematic nature of choice, as these women claim they choose to cover up and are not forced to do so by male guardians. If a woman can choose to wear the hijab, but knows she will face some form of violence, physical, verbal, or emotional, when she chooses to take it off, then it's definitely not a choice, but force. In another essay entitled, "Discrimination Against Women in Kuwaiti Laws and Culture," link is in the description box, in which I number all the Kuwaiti laws and cultural norms that not only restrict women's movement and self-autonomy, but also endanger their lives in Kuwait. From not having access to a gynecologist unless a woman is married, to not being able to authorize medical surgery for her child or other family members, because surgical authorization in Kuwait can only be given by a man, to Article 153 of the Kuwaiti criminal law, which sympathizes with men who kill their wives, daughters, sisters, or mothers in the name of preserving honor. In this essay, I want to focus on how Islam encourages the murder of women by their male guardians, also known in Muslim countries as honor killing or femicide. Despite UN statistics showing that 5,000 Muslim women are murdered every year by their male relatives, Muslims continue to argue that honor killing has nothing to do with Islam, that honor killing is a deep-rooted tribal tradition Arab men practiced before Islam, a complex ideology difficult to abolish. If this was true, then Islam, after 1,400 years, has failed as a religion to recondition the barbaric Muslim man into a decent human being who refrains from murdering women. Also, if honor killing is an Arab tradition that cannot be linked to Islam, then why do Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey, who are Muslim but not Arab countries, hold the highest records for honor killing? With Turkey reporting the murder of 474 Turkish women by their male guardians in 2019, all categorized as honor killings. This number was expected to double in 2020 due to the pandemic forcing families to quarantine. In Pakistan, 1,000 women are murdered each year by male relatives for reasons of honor. And in Iran, a staggering 8,000 honor killings were reported between 2010 and 2014. In addition to this, the extreme violence against women carried out by the Taliban and Boko Haram, both Muslim groups, neither Arab, show that Islamic beliefs play an integral role in the violence Muslim men practice upon women. Society cannot create a good woman until it first creates a bad woman. In all Muslim societies, a woman who adheres to misogynistic patriarchal restrictions, covering up her head and body, behaving piously, by displaying innocence and purity through sexual abstinence like a badge of honor, and obeying male guardians is seen as a good woman. Therefore, the woman who refuses to follow these religious and cultural rules deserves to be punished, deserves violence, deserves death. It is no wonder then, when I started to post on Twitter about a 24-year-old Kuwaiti woman named Ghalia al-Dhafiri, who was tortured and strangled by her 21-year-old brother, and her corpse disposed of in the desert, only to be found several days later. Kuwaiti women on Twitter slid into my DMs to ask me with genuine bafflement, why did he kill her? What did she do? What these women wanted to know was, what did Ghalia do to deserve being tortured and her throat slit by her brother? Because she must have done something. Bad women who dare to overpass the narrow boundaries men draw for them deserve to be killed. These Muslim women, blinded by their internalized misogyny, believe without question that if they overstep the restrictions and rules imposed on them by men, then men's violence against them will be justified. People in Kuwait would read short, vague articles. The victim's name is never mentioned. A corpse was found in the desert, the article would say. A young woman, 24 years old, 27, 30, 40. Her throat slit, strangled, shot, and was found. not buried, have her body eaten by wolves. Then, a few days later, another article. The murderer, also nameless, the victim's father, brother, or husband, turns himself in to the police. And that's it. Silence. Nothing is ever mentioned again. The public is never told whether the murderer is tried, convicted, or if imprisoned, for how long. Because of the shame and the alleged dishonor the families of the victims and the perpetrators feel, these murders are kept quiet, never spoken of or reported by the families. This is also why, when I revealed Ghalia al-Dhafiri's name on Twitter in 2018, it was a kind of shock, the first time a woman's name was revealed as a victim of honor killing. Ghalia was my friend Farah's relative. I still remember Farah's breathless voice on the phone. Her family said she died in a car accident, but it's her. She's the corpse found in the desert. I knew something wasn't right when they announced that there won't be a funeral, Farah said, sobbing uncontrollably. Farah and I wanted to honor Ghalia's memory. We didn't know where Ghalia was buried. We had no way of knowing. Girls like Ghalia did not get a tombstone or any distinguishing markers on their graves. Honor killings have always existed in Kuwait. I am not sure if these heinous crimes are growing in number or whether, due to the media becoming braver, although not brave enough, we are hearing more about them. There are no clear statistics because Kuwait is not a country known for its accuracy or its transparency. The hypocrisy practiced by both the government and the people, preferring to show the world a false image of luxury and comfort in the small oil state, means that all the ugliness of violence against women, oppression towards the stateless, and the horrific treatment of cheap foreign labor, especially poor women working in Kuwait as domestic help, is all hushed up and swept under the rug. When I lived in Kuwait, I heard stories about young girls and women murdered by men closest to them, a father, brother, husband, or son. A girl was suspected to be in a relationship with a man outside wedlock. The father, brother, husband, and even the son vows to restore the family's honor, and a body is buried somewhere in the desert. If anyone asks, the family will say that the girl married a man in Saudi Arabia and went to live with him there. But it never made much sense to me. Wouldn't friends and relatives be suspicious? Why doesn't she visit? Why doesn't she answers her friends' calls? But I also knew better. In Kuwait, as in all the Middle East, a girl's life is worthless, slaughtered like a lamb and forgotten, as if she never existed. In a small patriarchal country where girls from a very young age are taught to obey, to be quiet, weak, and submissive, where mothers who internalize misogyny discipline their daughters with, "You better not say or do that or your father will kill you," and "Do as you're told or your brother will kill you." It's no wonder that the murder of girls and women go unnoticed. Article 153 of the Kuwaiti criminal law sympathizes with men who kill their wives, daughters, sisters, and mothers. If a man finds his wife, mother, sister, or daughter in bed with a man and kills her, or kills the man, or kills them both, he will only be sentenced to 3 years in prison, rather than the capital punishment or a life sentence. Of course, those murderers never found their wives, daughters, or sisters in bed with men. They suspected their victims to be in some sort of relationship. They saw a text, or someone spread a rumor. But in a community with religious beliefs that encourage men to behave as if a man's honor rests in the sexual abstinence and the purity of his daughter, sister, wife, and mother, and where a corrupt justice system is run by like-minded men, those monsters get off easy. What's a 3-year prison sentence to keeping your tribe's honor? My friend Farah tried to dig deeper. Was Ghalia really found with a man? Ghalia's friends had different stories, one of which was that her brother found her at a mixed party. She was immodestly dressed, she was drunk. While some say this story is very unlikely. Another story told of a jealous ex-boyfriend who wanted revenge and sent Ghalia's indecent photos to her brother. What makes Ghalia's story more complicated is that she was married. She also had a baby son. Imagine your husband, brother, and father sitting together plotting your murder. In honor killings, the father and brother and the husband, if there is one, are always in it together. Her brother took her to the desert, tortured her, strangled her, and slit her throat. The short article specified that there was torture, suffocation, and a slashed throat. The murderous brother turned himself in. That's all we knew. Through an acquaintance who had access to the court's digital records of ongoing trials, Farah found out that the brother was facing trial. But when her informer tried to check again for updates, access to that trial in particular was blocked. Since 2014, there have been several attempts to change the law, but every time a woman organization named Abolish Article 153 sends the amendments to the parliament, they are rejected. When I published Ghalia's name on social media, the general response was, "You're lying. She died in a car accident. Shame on you for marring her name." When I argued that honor killings were on the rise and that there are many we never hear about because the families keep quiet about them, the response was that I was exaggerating and seeking attention. "You make it sound like Kuwait's soil is covered with women's corpses," one man whined. The media reported 8 murdered women in 2018 alone, all murdered by brothers, fathers, and husbands. "How many corpses do you need before you take the issue seriously?" I responded. Then the death and rape threats filled my inbox. "You're next. Your daughter Juri is next. And I know where you work," they read. I thought about names. The Kuwaiti society's persistence in concealing names of female victims to protect their family's reputation and honor, and to protect the killer. The fact that women in Kuwait don't really have autonomy over their names. When a girl is born, she is called by her father's name, the daughter of father's name. When she is married, she is called the wife of husband's name. And when she has a son, she is called the mother of son's name. Until she dies, her name in itself, like her body, is a source of shame and must be shrouded. I tweeted about how important it is to reveal the names of women victims, that the media and the families purposely veil the names so that the victims are easily forgotten. I also tweeted about the importance of having a safe shelter for women, which, until today, Kuwait does not have. Women sent me stories, blood-curdling stories of the violence and fear they live in day after day. A woman in her 30s killed by her father because she wanted to live independently of her family after her divorce. The father reportedly provided the police with the following confession. "I straddled her, wrapped my hands around her throat, and squeezed. I can see her fading, her face turning blue. I knew I was killing her, but I couldn't stop." Another murdered by her brother because he found out that she knew her husband before she married him. Another murdered by her husband because she asked for a divorce. On and on the stories went about brothers who rape and uncles who molest and mothers who knew and either turned a blind eye or blamed their daughter's attire, threatening the girl if she dared reveal what she had gone through. "Just stay away from him," one girl told me her mother advised her when she confided in her that her older brother molested her. A couple of months after Ghalia's murder, a girl named Hajar Alajmi was murdered by her brother. Hajar identified as queer, and her brother claimed he killed her by accident while he was cleaning his rifle. Numerous Kuwaiti women are killed yearly by brothers who accidentally shoot them while they're cleaning their guns. After Hajar, Fatima Alajmi was murdered by her brother. He shot her in the hospital where she was being treated. She was pregnant with her second child. Fatima defied her family and married a man they did not approve of. Her brother never forgave her for it. The latest Kuwaiti victim, a woman named Farah Akbar. She was killed in April 2021 in her car in front of her two daughters, aged 12 and 5, by a man she turned down because she was already married. After I sought asylum in the United States, Kuwaiti women following me on Twitter sent me messages telling me they wish they could migrate to the West, somewhere they can live freely, free from all the religious and social restrictions, free from the fear and the oppression and the inequality they face on a daily basis. They don't have the money, they don't speak the language, they've never traveled on their own before, but they want to leave and experience what it's like to have some autonomy over their lives. They don't want to be controlled by their male relatives anymore. They don't want to be abused by them, telling them what they can and can't wear, where they can and can't go, who they can and can't befriend, whether or not they are allowed to go to college or work, depriving them of higher education and work, marrying them off to husbands they don't want, whom they are later forced to have children with, and all in the name of, "We know what's best for you." I personally know how oppressive this tyranny is, of men tormenting women for women's own good. It never ceases, especially when men have God's and society's approval.